Hello and welcome to episode 64 of the It's Just a Hill Cycling Podcast. I am John, and today I am here with Jason Shuford from NBX. Hello, Jason.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like how long? So we're here. We're at NBX. If that wasn't obvious, this is a follow-up to the last episode, which had been from NBX, and now we're here.
Yep.
How long have you worked at NBX? Maybe not even necessarily this location. Tell me a little bit about that backstory, if you don't mind.
It's funny. I started working for NBX in December 2015.
Okay.
And how that happened was the shop that I was working at, East Providence Cycle.
Yep.
The owners were retiring.
Yep.
So when they told us they were retiring, which was clearly before that.
Yeah.
And they told us who they were selling the business to, it was a bit of a shocker for some of the East Providence Cycle employees.
Sure.
And a big change.
Yeah.
And so anyway, long story short.
And that was Matt bought that shop.
Yeah, they and Rob and Helen, I'm sure, had potential people they were looking at other shops.
Yeah.
Matt being very proactive in the community.
Yeah.
And with the business,
right?
They felt like he was the guy.
Yeah. And that was at the time where there were 4 shops. Is that right?
Well, East Providence made 4 shops.
Gotcha.
For
That
NBX
made number 4
because number 3 was 3 was Narragansett. It was Warwick Post Road, and then what was 4th Street in Providence.
Oh, okay. Not Hope Street.
Nope, it was 4th Street before it was Hope Street.
It was 4th Street, like off the beaten path. I think Matt told me this when he was
it was kind of
the 4th Street that's over there near Miriam Hospital. This is very Providence.
Yeah, so it was right off of Hope Street.
So
if you're where Seven Stars Bakery is,
behind there,
you go across the street, you go down Hope Street, and their store was right there.
Got you.
So and then East Providence made 4.
Got you. Yeah. So, and then when it consolidated, you came here.
Right.
Okay.
Well, not at first.
Okay.
Not at first. So I worked for NBX from December 2015 to June of 2020.
Okay.
Because Matt sold 3 stores to Trek.
Right.
Kept this location, kept his team here, and then everyone that were working at the other stores kind of, did their own thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people did stay on with with that acquisition.
Right.
Ben left.
Yeah.
And I stayed on with Trek from June of 2020 to January of 2021.
Got you. And then you came here?
And then I came down here.
Yeah. Nice. And so you've been here since then. You experienced the COVID boom.
Yes.
Here.
Yes, I did. There and down here.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you, let's rewind a little bit. Do you remember, when you first learned how to ride a bike and how bikes became, I don't think I'm assuming and saying that bikes are a big part of your life.
Yeah.
Right? You work at the shop. We're going to talk about your riding in just a bit. Did you learn how to ride when you were a kid?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Very young.
Yeah.
Very young.
Just to tool around?
It's foggy. I think my memory of learning how to ride was my sister, who's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
And her friends were out, and there was a bike. They put me on a bike, and I started pedaling.
Yeah.
And I was all over the place, but I didn't fall off the bike. I just started pedaling the bike.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm dating myself, but this is before a balance bike was not a thing.
Oh, sure.
It wasn't a thing, and the bike that I was on didn't have training wheels.
How long have balance bikes been around? Because I only know about them because
15 years, maybe?
Gotcha.
And I could be wrong.
My peers have been having kids.
Right.
For the past 5, let's say 10 years.
Sure.
And to me, it's very new.
Right.
But 15 years seems...
And it could be longer than that,
sure. I'm sure people were taking pedals off bikes and having their kids move around on that,
Right.
Yeah.
I guess if for anybody out there that knows the name, there was a video of a professional mountain biker named Jackson Goldstone, who was not a professional at the time.
Yeah.
And his family, they put out a video of him riding to school.
Oh, okay.
And at the time, he was a little kid. I don't know if he was 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah.
And he was on a balance bike.
His name is Jackson Goldstone?
Yeah.
That is, he was meant to be a mountain biker.
Yeah,
with a name like that.
He was on a balance bike, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, that's why and that was kind of my first kind of recollection of a balance bike was seeing him push and like jump off ledges and push down mountain bike trails.
Yeah. And so now he's like an adult and is a pro?
Oh, he's a top professional downhiller.
And he's like in his 20s or something.
Yeah. Yes, because he's in his, this past season would have been his second year in elites, but he got hurt. So he missed.
He's 20.
Okay, so there you go.
He's 20.
So,
So that makes sense. If he was 15 years ago,
right.
chilling around on that.
He might even been younger than 5.
Yeah, sure.
So, but anyway, that was my first recollection with balance bikes. But we didn't have those when I was a kid, so that was my first experience riding a bike. And then, like a lot of kids, it stuck with me through the years.
Yeah.
So.
And then, so like, when did that turn from like, riding around the neighborhood or whatever to something that you were gonna like, because you ride mountain bikes a lot, right?
Yeah.
So when did it turn from tooling around the neighborhood or like back and forth to school, whatever it was, to like, hey, we're gonna go ride on trails?
There's a huge gap.
Yeah.
Huge gap
between
in between
into where you are.
My early teens and preteens of riding BMX bikes with my friends in the neighborhood and all that.
Right.
And then into high school, rode very little.
Yeah.
And then it was no bikes.
Yeah, after high school.
No, like even during high school.
Got you.
There was no bikes.
Yeah.
And I think a big part about it, of that, was there was no culture.
Yeah.
So meaning that there was no scene. Like the kids that I rode bikes with weren't riding bikes anymore.
Right.
They were playing sports. They were doing other things.
Not even BMX bikes anymore.
Not even BMX bikes.
Right.
Like bikes were just out of the picture completely.
Right.
And we just did other things. I played football. I wrestled for a little bit. I didn't like rolling around on a sweaty mat.
Yeah.
So football was pretty much my sport all through high school.
Yeah.
Got out of high school, worked, went to college for a bit, still no bikes.
Yeah.
Stopped going to college, worked for UPS for a long time, no bikes.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until my 20s, honestly, my mid-20s, where bikes kind of came back into the picture. And it was because my next door neighbor and other guys in my neighborhood just wanted to get bikes.
Yeah.
It was just a thing. It snapped. And they were like, yo, we want mountain bikes.
Yeah.
And the cool mountain bike at the time, now I'm going back to the 90s.
Yeah.
The cool mountain bike at the time for us, Cannondales just looked cool.
Okay.
They just look cool.
Why?
Big aluminum tubing, the Cannondale logo, very big on the down
Now
tube.
we're talking, it's like, and now I can picture the bike. A friend of mine rides one of these like dated, like he has since like maybe put drop bars on it. It's like an R500 or something.
Oh yeah, that's the road bike.
Okay, that's the road bike.
That's the road bike.
What was the one with like the big beefy red with the yellow lettering?
So that could have been a F700, a F900, a F1000.
Gotcha. So those are the Fs.
Yeah, and then before that they had the M series, and in this era, all the Cannondale frames, they were all made in the U.S.
Yeah.
And Cannondale bikes used to come in a box, sort of like a Santa Cruz comes now, where the bike was not completely assembled.
Oh, okay.
You had to route brake lines
and
shift lines. Yeah. And you had to put the shifters on the bars.
So did you do that when you got this bike?
No.
Or your friends did?
No, because I didn't have one of those.
Gotcha.
So my buddy had a Trek multi-track 820, a very recreational mountain bike.
Okay.
And he wound up getting a Cannondale.
Yeah.
And his Cannondale was a M whatever. And then he sold me that Trek.
Oh, okay.
And that was the bike that got me back into it. So I had that bike for a bit. And we weren't even mountain biking.
Yeah.
We were just riding around the neighborhood. Sure. It was like, it wasn't transportation. Right. It was recreation.
Yeah. Yeah, and they were comfortable. And you could just like chill on them.
Yep.
Do
and
whatever.
A lot of my friends, they were athletes. So they played basketball and they were really into it.
Yeah.
And the bike was just something to do for exercise.
Sure.
And then we would just ride around.
Yeah.
And I moved to White Plains. I was living in Tarrytown, New York, and then I moved to White Plains with some friends.
Yeah.
And I had the bike, and then a girl I knew wanted to buy it. And I remember telling her name was Alice. I was like, this bike's too big for you.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, I'll buy it, but I think my brother might like it. So I sold it to her for like super cheap.
Yeah.
Just to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But I still wanted another bike. So I went to, I'm not going to say the name of the shop, but I went to a big store in Westchester County.
Okay.
And they sold a bunch of brands, but they had a GT.
Oh, yeah.
And the minute I didn't know GT made mountain bikes.
Yeah.
So the minute I saw that GT, I was like, what?
Yeah.
That's the type of mountain bike that I want.
Is this one of those mountain bikes that has like a crazy triangle?
Oh, yeah, triple triangle, all Terra.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anything about mountain bikes.
Sure.
It was a frame. It had knobby tires with tan walls, and it said GT, and I was in. I was like, that's because I had GT BMX bikes. So I was like, the name recognition.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So the salesperson's like, oh, yeah, it's this much or whatever. So I put some money down on it, went back, picked it up, rode it home.
Yeah.
Went to ride up so the shop I had to go to, it was in Scarsdale.
Yeah.
I had to ride down Central Avenue.
It's like a busy road?
Busy road. It's like Route 2, but it's flat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I had to ride down Central Avenue into White Plains.
Yeah.
Actually, no, Hartsdale.
Yeah.
And then there was Concord Road is a massive hill.
Okay.
And I made it maybe a quarter up the hill, and I had to walk the rest of the way. I was like, oh my God, this sucks.
Yeah.
So pushed the bike up the hill, but kept riding it.
Yeah.
I moved back to Tarrytown
Yeah.
a few years later and still had the bike. I'm still riding the bike. And one day, my crank arm was broken. Mm-hmm. And I was actually living with my mom at the time. And I was like, damn, my bike is, I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
She was like, maybe it's under warranty. I was like, I've had it for, a couple years.
Yeah.
So I took it to the local bike shop, which was on Beekman Avenue. It was called Sleepy Hollow Bikes.
Yeah.
And Sleepy Hollow Bikes was in an apartment building called the Van Tassel.
Okay.
And the lower level of the Van Tassel had businesses.
Okay. Yeah.
And Sleepy Hollow Bikes was right on the corner. So I took it in there just to see if I could get a new crank. And the store manager was a guy named Tom LaFura.
Yeah.
And he looked at it and he was like, I think this is under warranty. Wow. I was like, oh, well.
And you didn't, obviously you didn't buy the bike there.
Nope, didn't buy the bike there. It had
shop.
a Shimano crankset on it. Yep. So, and I don't even think I had like.
Interesting. Shimano crankset, all those years, cranks are failing. Oh, if we only knew then,
right,
what we knew now, or vice versa.
Oh man,
yeah.
So
they helped you out.
He helped me out,
yeah,
and I didn't have a proof of purchase or anything. He just did it. He just warrantied it. So he called me up. He's like, "Yep, you're all set." Came back, got the bike, and that's where I started going for service.
Cool.
And then Tom lived in a town called New Paltz.
Uh-huh.
So if you know what I'm talking about. Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow is right on the Hudson River.
Yeah.
It's western Westchester County.
Yeah.
The Hudson River is separating Tarrytown and Rockland County.
Okay.
And if you stay on the New York State Thruway and go north, you'll eventually get to Kingston.
Yeah.
Which will then get you to New Paltz. It's like 2 hours away.
Gotcha.
So he was commuting.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And Tom was a local XC pro from that area.
Oh, okay.
And he was sponsored by a brand at the time called Vicious Cycles, which was based out of New Paltz.
Yeah.
And he was a beast on a bike.
Yeah.
And one day he asked me if I wanted to go mountain biking, and I went with him. He beat the crap out of me.
Yeah.
And I kind of didn't like it because it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't. The fitness side wasn't what I was expecting.
Yeah.
But I just kept going back for more abuse.
Yeah. Right. And then eventually it knocked your fitness into the right place.
Right. And that was it. And then after that, it was bikes all the time.
Cool. And were you ever drawn to, let's say, road cycling, right? Because, gravel wasn't really a thing then.
No, it wasn't.
Right. So they're very much just two worlds of, not to ignore BMX, but
I feel like like gravel, it wasn't called gravel.
Right.
Because the owners of the store that I worked for were triplets.
Yeah.
Charles, John, and Rob. And Rob was the guy that ran
they
the
all
store.
did like one discipline? Like one was the road?
They were all hardcore. These guys were cyclists.
Okay.
And they didn't.
Now, when you say that, not to cut you off, but when you say that, what do you mean by that? Because I think the term cyclist I think that's a very interesting term.
I agree.
There are so many of us.
Yep.
Right? But we could be totally different riders.
Absolutely.
I don't ride the way that you ride at all.
Right.
You don't ride the way that I ride at all. People who ride recreationally to work could be considered cyclists. It is a very broad term, full of a lot of different type of people.
I agree.
So when you say that, do you mean like roadies, like hardcore roadies?
Oh, hardcore.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't a cyclist. To me, they were cyclists. Like they had their shop kit. They had a shop team.
Yeah.
These guys rode serious road guys.
Yeah.
Big miles.
Unapproachably serious.
Yes.
We all know the type.
Yes.
There's still roadies around like that.
I mean, they were very, very into it.
Yeah.
And they knew their stuff.
Yeah.
And they didn't touch their mountain bikes until January.
Got you. But you were saying you were bringing up gravel. Like, did they do stuff like
some
that?
of them rode I think a couple of the guys rode cross.
Gotcha.
And they would ride some of the mountain bike trails in our town on cross bikes.
Right.
Like on the sections that were like fire roads.
Yeah.
Went into a little bit of
Windy
single
stuff,
track.
good cross training, get the heart rate up.
Absolutely. And they would take cyclocross bikes all the time.
Ride up steep stuff, bomb down something crazy.
Yes.
On drop bars.
Drop bar, full on cross race bike.
That's a funny thing. You know, people do talk about this like gravel resurgence, which I think is more of a marketing thing than anything, right? Like people have been riding bikes on multi-surfaces, different types of bikes for years, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even if you go back to like the biggest bike race in the world, the Tour de France, 100 years ago, there are routes that are on gravel roads, right? Dirt roads, right? And there's all these different, gravel's such a nebulous term. But people don't bring up the fact that like cross has been around like for a long time. There is a huge culture of cross, especially in Europe, right? And those people have been riding drop bars on wild stuff, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, like how did those guys train for cross season?
Right. They're riding on mountain bike trails. Some of them might mountain bike.
Yeah. Some of them might just ride a cross bike on a mountain bike trail that can handle it.
Right. It's omnipresent. It's just that like we're the technology is advancing in such a way that now we have all these different frame geometries, right? And you can have something like this Aspero that is a gravel bike, but it's pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Not because that's bad, but it's just, it's like a racy bike. And there's like the comparison between the Aspero 5 and like not the 5, right? Which is a little bit more relaxed. It's like not as race oriented. It's a little bit heavier. There's just so many options now that people can sort of like, ride what they want.
It's a good thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's a good thing. Yeah,
I think it's a good thing if the consumer doesn't let it consume them and confuse them.
Yes. Right.
I think
but I mean, that's what, not to like break the fourth wall, but like that's what we're here for. Like, that's what the shop's here for.
Absolutely.
That's what this podcast is for. Right. Is to break it down, because a big reason why I wanted to start this club and in turn the podcast is because of those like hardcore roadies.
Yeah.
They're like honestly the least approachable people I've ever been around in my life.
Right.
And I've like surfed different cultures, right? Like I've been to like metal shows and like skate parks and bikes, right? Like and like going to like these like hardcore roadie like group rides on a Sunday. It's so weird.
It's wild.
And it is not like the most welcoming. And so to break down that barrier, I think is like so important, like how do we make bikes in general more approachable? And it's like, and you can be serious about your hobby. Don't get me wrong. I like to ride hard, but that doesn't mean that like, I think everyone else should ride the same way as me.
Yeah.
That's like the weird thing. So like, I don't ride mountain bikes at all. I often think about it. The more that I come here, I think about it.
We talk about it a lot.
We talk about it. There's a lot of great mountain bikes here at the shop. There's a lot of great mountain bikes on the market.
Yeah.
If you were to try to convince me, like, let's say, hey, I'm going to like, let's go for a mountain bike ride. Like, what type of ride, knowing what you know about me and like the type of road riding that I like to do, what do you think is a good entry level for me? Because I do ride gravel a little bit, but let me tell you, I'm sorry to cut you off. I don't like riding my gravel bike on those bony trails that some of these sadistic mountain bikers
Underbiking a little bit,
Yes.
like Sean Capizzo.
Yes.
I mean, Capizzo's got the skills to be able to ride his
A lot of mountain
Sparrow
bikers do.
on some mountain bike.
Yeah.
He can ride his gravel bike on some mountain bike trails. Matt,
Yep.
you know, they just have the bike handling skills and
Right.
they the IQ to be able to ride that bike and know where the line. There's
Yes.
a line where they're going to say, okay, I'm going to do something stupid and I'm going to either fall or I'm going to break my bike.
Yeah,
I'm going to break a wheel or something.
Right.
What I would first, let's talk about the bike that I
Yeah.
would suggest. To me, it's a toss up between two bikes, and I'll tell you why. And I'll make it.
In terms of types of bike?
Yeah, for sure. I'll make it. I won't go crazy technical into detail. The first bike would be a bike like the Trek Super Caliper or a Santa Cruz Blur.
Okay, yeah.
And I just feel like the geo of that bike would put you into a familiar place.
So when I see those bikes,
Yeah.
they look just like so good.
I feel like they would put you
They just
into a
like-
familiar place, a little bit more over the front wheel.
Yeah.
You know, stretched out a little bit.
Yep.
Plenty of room for seat height adjustment. I would. There would be a dropper post on either of those bikes.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah.
So something like that. The other bike would be like maybe a bike like the Trek Top Fuel
Okay.
or a Santa Cruz Tallboy. Maybe.
Now, what's the difference? Is one an XC bike, one's an enduro bike? How
No,
does that?
I would say if we had to put them in classes,
Yeah.
Blur and Super Cal would be considered XC bikes.
Okay.
Tallboy and Top Fuel would be, I'm not going to use the industry term for it because I think it's stupid. I would just call those trail bikes.
Trail
like
bikes.
light marathon bikes or trail bikes.
Do you think it is unfair to put bikes in certain classes?
No,
No.
not at all. Because I think having different classes really gives the rider and the consumer the ability to really dive a little deep into the classes and figure out what suits them.
Right.
So not every bike is for everybody. And I've been someone who's kind of always would rather over bike because I like to ride a lot of different places.
Yeah.
So I might want to go to Big River.
Yep.
And then the next day I might want to go up to the bike park.
Yeah.
And if I can only have one bike,
Yeah.
I don't want to sacrifice bike park capability. So I'd rather have a bike that's too much bike for one place, but the perfect bike for the other place.
Right.
So that's just me.
Yeah.
So I would say one of those two categories for you, I think a bike like, say, a Tallboy might give you a little bit more confidence
I was hoping you were going to say confidence.
when things
because
get crazy.
That's what I lack in the woods. Truly, that's what I lack. Even on my gravel bike on 40 mil tires, which I know is like almost like too narrow for gravel now. I feel like every 6 months they're like 45s. Now everyone's yelling about 45.
Just get a mountain bike after that.
Yeah. So, but I'm saying like riding 40s at even like a low PSI, right? Like sub 40 PSI at my weight. It's this time of year, especially leaves covering these rock
Oh man,
gardens.
forget about it. And the leaves are like wax paper right now.
It's intimidating, you know, and that's sort of what I'm intimidated by is my skill is lacking, and so my confidence is lacking, and what I'm most scared about is like getting injured.
Yeah, falling hurts.
Because I like to, and I also like, I don't think anyone needs to hear this, but I love to ride my bike.
Oh yeah.
It would be soul crushing if something were to happen to me. And I'm not like, obviously it could be bone crushing, but I'm talking like my mental fortitude could be heavily
we all
affected.
feel that way when
You know?
we get hurt.
Yeah.
Like I fractured 3 ribs
Yeah.
back in June of 2023, and I was off, they were like, you're going to be off the bike for 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this sucks.
Right.
I was off the bike for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad, but just not. And I worked through it, and it was okay.
Yeah.
But still,
No, I also understand like the way that I'm thinking about it isn't the best way to think about it, right? Like because I'm thinking about the negative, like, but think about all the positives that could come from it, right? Like I do ride my bike on the road a lot. I like to ride on the road, but I like motorists are dangerous.
I was gonna say that it can be just as sketchy riding on the road.
Yeah.
Because whether it's a Our infrastructure is still not cycling
Nope.
friendly.
Right.
Cars are not cycling friendly. And what I mean by that is all the technology in a car right now, for some people, it's distracting.
Yeah.
And then there's just morons that don't like cyclists.
Yes.
So you have all these factors, and you're sharing the road with something way, way, way bigger than you and faster than you.
It's not fair.
And
it's not a fair fight.
It's scary.
You'll lose every time.
You'll lose every time. Yeah. And if you want to ride on the road, you have to accept that, and you have to deal with that.
Right.
And you guys do it well, and you're not going to not ride.
Right.
So you're going to ride properly.
Yeah.
You're going to do all the things that you're supposed to do on the road as far as a vehicle on the road.
Right, right.
And you're going to get it done.
Right.
And it's dangerous. So
and I think that's why people lean towards gravel.
Yes.
At least roadies. Let's
I
say
agree.
like roadies lean towards gravel
Absolutely,
because
100%.
there are less cars. Even if you're on roads that
Right.
are unpaved, they're just much less traveled, you know?
Sure.
And so mountain bike trail, obviously even more, right? If we're talking Lincoln Woods, we're talking Big River,
Right.
cars aren't going through there.
No.
Like, you know, and so sure, you might be intimidated by a rock garden or like, you know, a tree really close to the side of the trail.
Don't look at the trees.
Yeah, don't look at the
Look
trees.
at the things and look at the
you-
trail. Don't look
Yeah.
Because if you look at the tree,
That's where you're going
hit
to.
the tree.
Yeah.
So don't look at the
Exactly.
trees.
Yeah. Like, okay, let me ask you a different question. What, like, you know, you experience a lot of road cyclists that come into the shop, obviously.
Yes.
And you have this perspective of someone that rides mountain bikes a lot, but you're still knowledgeable about all these different types of bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of like, if there's like a common misconception that road cyclists have about mountain biking? Is it that fear? Did we hit it there? Or do you think there's something else that like,
You mean about mountain biking as an activity?
Yeah,
As
I
a
don't-
discipline?
like, well, I think as a discipline, right? Because and I'll paint it like from my perspective as someone that rides road bikes all the time. I think mountain biking seems really cool. When I talk about like the unapproachable road cyclists, I don't really get that vibe as much from mountain bikers. And I'm sure there are elitists, because there are elitists in sort of every hobby. It doesn't matter if we're talking about shoes or if we're talking about bikes, right? There are people are going to be snobs. And you can be a snob and like keep it to yourself, or you can be a snob and like make other people feel badly about it. And that's what sucks. But like, so to me, mountain biking seems a lot more laid back. It seems, like I said, a little bit more dangerous in that regard, in the terms of like being in the woods as opposed to like dealing with motorists.
Right.
Is there something that you feel like, like an average non-mountain biker isn't like getting the concept of, or?
It's a few things. I think for some people that are riding road bikes, mountain bikes were just never on their radar.
Yeah.
So it's not even something they're thinking about. Other people have thought about it, and there's this self-preservation piece. They're just like, well, I feel safer on my road bike.
Sure.
And I think our society puts stuff out there that can scare some people away. Like if the average person that doesn't ride any bike, for instance, watches something like Red Bull Rampage, they're like, what is this?
Yeah, I know.
And I have people that I know that don't ride bikes at all, and they send me little Instagram clips, and they're like, do you do this? With a question mark. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Most mountain bikers are not doing that.
Right. My brother sends
know what
me
I mean?
those clips, and I don't think he thinks that I do. My brother doesn't ride bikes at all. I don't think he thinks that I do that.
Right.
Whenever he sends me those things, I'm like, yeah, these people are.
Yeah.
They're wild.
Right.
Like,
and I think a lot of and it could be people that ride road bikes or, whatever, they look at that and they're just like, that just looks suicidal.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to do that? And with the way that the cameras make the footage look nowadays,
GoPro strapped to the front.
it looks even crazier.
It's super bowed out on the edges.
Oh
It
my
goes
God,
so fast.
yes.
What are some of those like? It's like Snowvalanche or something, like these crazy downhill events that happen at like ski parks.
Megalovance happens.
Yes.
In the Alps.
And it's wild. It starts like in the snow.
It's like a mass start in the snow.
Yes. And then they bomb down, and all of a sudden, like you see the snow is like dissipating, right? Because they're getting closer to sea level. It's a lot warmer. And then I've seen ones that like start in snow and like go through towns. You know,
That's
like
Mega Levance.
Yeah.
It starts at the top of. I'm not sure the mountain that they do it at.
Okay.
It's in France somewhere.
Yep.
And it starts at the top, and there's usually snow and ice. And then as they get from the top of that portion of the race,
Yeah.
and it's a mass start.
Wow, it's at Alpe d'Huez.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a mass start. They run to their bike. They get on their
Yes.
bike.
Yeah.
And it just funnels.
Right.
And it runs into like really like scree gardens and
Yes.
really
Yeah.
technical, steep,
Yeah.
sharp rocks that can take you out. And
Yeah, I mean,
then
it's like-
eventually into single track and into the woods, and one person wins.
Right, 20 minutes to 1 hour. On average, it lasts 35 to 50 minutes for
Yeah.
each individual rider.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you ever have a chance to watch it on YouTube, it's like so
Yeah, it's pretty
exciting.
wild.
It's so exciting. Mega Valanche. I love that. Kind of reminds me of Bruce Valanche. I don't know if you know what that is. I actually think I asked you this on an Instagram video maybe about a year ago, but your favorite trail, let's say locally, right? Like, what is your favorite trail, and like what makes it your favorite? Or what's your and even if that's too specific, you can just say area to ride.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna be partial to where I ride most.
Yep.
But there's a lot of good stuff in Rhode
Yeah.
Island.
So you're thinking Lincoln Woods specifically.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm a Lincoln Woods park rat.
Right.
That's
I mean,
where
you
I
just were a
ride.
participant in the fun ride there.
Yeah, for sure.
I heard like that you put together great routes from what I saw like
Yeah,
on
it was-
Strava, online, on
Yeah, for sure.
Instagram.
It was good.
There's like a pretty sweet XC route that you put together.
Yeah. Well, Charles mapped it
Okay. Yeah.
and then got it up on Trail Forks, and then
Yeah.
him and I and others, we were
Right.
able to clear it.
Yeah.
And then I arrowed part of it, and
Cool.
then other people, volunteers, arrowed parts
Yeah.
of it, and
Yeah.
it just flowed really well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, what was cool about it is I think a lot of the people that don't ride Lincoln Woods don't ride it because there are a couple reasons. I think they think it's way gnarlier than it is.
Yes.
And it's hard to navigate if you don't know where you're going.
Okay.
And that was my experience with Lincoln Woods when I moved here.
Yeah.
When I moved here and I finally got a trail bike again,
Yeah.
I went there and I didn't know where I was going because nothing's marked.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of pedaling around the woods, and I have trail IQ. I kind of know what a mountain bike trail looks like.
Yeah.
And I started figuring out, all right, so I need to be going down this and not up this.
Right. Right.
But it was about trying to connect it.
Yeah.
So I would ride there, I would ride down a trail, and then I would just turn my bike around and pedal back up it, and then
Yeah.
push back up it, and then ride it again.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to connect it. And then I just started venturing out and learning.
Yeah.
And then I went to a fun ride in 2013 that was arrowed, and that's when I really learned the place.
Oh, cool.
So,
Yeah.
now it's like I know it like the
Right.
back of my hand,
Right,
and
right,
like a lot of other people. But I would say Lincoln Woods is by far my spot.
Yeah.
My favorite trail there is I'm liking Wiggle a lot more now.
Wiggle.
But
Yeah.
Serpentine is probably
Okay. I've heard you say that one before. Yeah.
tops for me personally.
So what does a typical like mountain bike ride look like for you? You live relatively close. I mean, you drive there obviously.
Yeah, I could ride there if I
Yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah. And
I'm
so-
still that close.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
It would
So-
be just under 30 minutes for me to ride there.
And then what is that ride like? Like what do you are you like taking in the scenery, or does it depend on
Sometimes.
the day?
Sometimes I'm
yeah.
I'm just riding for a couple miles and stopping and chilling.
Yeah.
If I'm by myself.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't have time, but I still want to bang out a decent ride, and I won't stop much.
Yeah.
I'd say on average it's between 8 and 10 miles,
Yep.
just based off of who I'm with and time.
Sure. Yeah. And how long does that take?
Pedaling time, a little over an hour.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
If you look at Strava, it's usually between an hour and a half.
Gotcha. Yeah. Depending. Yeah.
We're not, riding at a race pace.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not riding training. I'm just
Yeah.
riding.
Yeah.
So, but I've done big rides in there though, where I've done the loop that I did and then did it again.
Oh, okay. Cool.
And
Yeah.
it was, God, that was like maybe 16 miles in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing about it. There's a lot packed into a relatively small place.
Right. If you look at it on a map, it's not a huge.
It's not a big
park.
place, and then there's a whole section of it that we can't even access because it's equestrian only.
Oh, gotcha.
But some people that are gonna see this, might hate on it, but I love Big River.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
To me,
is it a polarizing place amongst the mountain biking community?
It's just got so much terrain.
Yeah.
And once you're out there, you're just out there in the woods. And I know Arcadia is the same. I don't know Arcadia as well.
Okay.
And what I mean the same is that it's just you're out there.
Yeah.
But
you mean out there like once you
get in the woods, you might not see anybody.
Do you like that or you don't like
Sometimes,
that?
oh yeah, I love that. Like if I'm with my group, and I don't see another person, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
And, Big River has traveled a bit more, so it's tough for you to not see someone walking a dog or trail running or another mountain biker going the other way. And
do you think it has to do more with the terrain that's offered there or just like the location, right? Because Lincoln Woods is it's just in a much more populated area.
Yeah,
right? It's more densely populated in Lincoln and in Providence
it's a city
County.
Park.
Yeah, right.
It's a city park.
Yeah. Right. People from the city go there.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas like Big River, right, I mean, it's off the beaten path a little bit more. Yep. It's like close to 95, but it's
centrally located, which is nice.
Coventry, West Greenwich line.
Right.
And then Arcadia is even further removed in Exeter.
Yep.
It's like a little bit further off the main interstate.
Right.
So it's interesting because like I have experience walking around Lincoln Woods when I lived in Providence. My wife and I would take our dog there.
Yeah.
I ride my road bike through there sometimes if we start road rides around the area.
Sure.
It is like a nice like spot to ride through. I've ridden in Arcadia a ton.
Right.
On my gravel bike, and I've hiked in there a ton. Big River, I grew up in that area, so I'm like familiar with Big River. And I've ridden actually when I first got like into bikes, and I wasn't really even into bikes at all. My dad bought my wife and I hardtail mountain bikes from REI, and we took them to Big River, and I rode them on some trails that I had no business being on. But I also rode them on like some of those like wider sort of like double track fire roads that like go like, if you know the area, like behind the industrial parts of like Big River where those big, trucks pull in all the time. And that was fun. It was like sandy as hell, which is another weird thing about that whole area. Big River and Arcadia are like so wildly sandy. Is Lincoln Woods sandy?
No, it's not sandy, but right now it's dusty because we've had no moisture. So
I don't think it is. It actually like hasn't like rained a significant amount in over a month here.
It's very, very. It's very dry, and I think a lot of people are kind of like it's almost as bad as if it was wet.
Yeah.
Wet would almost be better, in some places.
Right.
So the conditions are tricky. It's great temperature.
Yeah.
It's great climate. It's just bone dry.
Yeah.
And trails can take a beating when they don't have any moisture.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's happening right now.
Right.
And Lincoln Woods gets a lot of traffic.
Yeah, sure.
A lot of traffic.
More than the other two spots that we mentioned.
No, I don't think more. I just think different riders are riding big.
Gotcha.
Like the group of riders that ride Lincoln Woods are kind of like me. They're bike park guys, enduro guys, trail guys. And there's a section of the park that's heavily used.
Gotcha.
Because it's all kind of more enduro
that type
based.
of stuff. Yeah.
So it's like rinse and repeat. You hit a downhill trail, you pedal back up the fire road, you hit another one.
Yeah.
And it's like each one is kind of like an enduro stage.
Yeah.
And people are training on it for Eastern States Cup, which is a series out here.
Oh, okay.
In New England. And, it gets used a lot.
Yeah.
So there's a different group of users that are riding Lincoln Woods than I would say riding places like Big River or Arcadia because Big River and Arcadia don't quite have the same trail style.
Yeah, that's great, right? I mean, you have like different options.
Yeah.
And a lot of people maybe around here with like a Rhode Island mentality don't really want to drive more than like 20 minutes anywhere.
Sure.
But those, I mean, all these places, and we haven't mentioned Woody Hill, but they're all, let's say within 40 minutes of each other.
Yeah, and it's, whenever I complain about driving to Woody Hill, I still get there in under an hour.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, damn, it only took me 50 minutes to get to the lacrosse field.
Right.
So it's not that far.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, that's nice. Now I will say I think we need to devote another episode to pedal assist bikes. To be perfectly honest, just based on timing.
Yeah,
but
totally.
I would like to hear what type of bike you are riding currently. On these trails, and that is a pedal assist bike. Is
Sure.
that right? Yeah. So what are you riding these days?
A Trek Rail 9.8.
9.8. How long have you been riding it?
A little over a year.
Yeah,
I'd say probably a year and almost a year and a half, maybe.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And that's what you take. Is that the bike that you ride exclusively?
Mostly.
Yeah.
Because I also have a Trek Slash.
Okay.
And and I'm not gonna. Again, it's a non-pedal assist mountain bike.
Yeah.
But it's catering more to the enduro world.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
really long wheelbase, bunch
Yeah.
of suspension travel, really slack.
Yeah.
Really low.
Right.
Not really a rocket ship
Yeah.
going up hills,
Yeah.
but super fun to ride on
Yeah.
the techie, chunky
Yeah.
stuff.
That's
And
the
it's
Slash.
it's super lively. And what I like about that bike is when I get on it now, it feels so light.
Oh, really?
After
Compared
riding,
to the rail?
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on an XC bike.
Yeah.
It's just so light compared to it. And it's in its class, it's not a light bike.
Sure.
It's still well over 30 pounds.
Oh, what the?
But when I get on
Slashes?
it, the Slash is
like-
my Slash, the way I have it built up, it's probably 30, close to 35 pounds.
Okay. Yeah.
And I get on it, it feels like it's 20 pounds.
Yeah.
After riding that rail.
And what do you run? Like, how wide are your tires on either of those bikes? Are they the same or are they different because the bikes are different?
No, I try to run. I'm a Maxxis guy, so it's 2.5 WT, which stands for wide trail.
Okay.
Whether it's an Assegai or a Minion DHF, those are my two favorite. Well, I like the DHR.
Yep.
But that comes in a 2.4. They actually do make that in a 2.5 now.
Yeah.
They've widened the casing a little bit. So it's like those three tires are like my tried and true go-tos. They're predictable. I know when they're going to hook up. I know when they're going to break free.
Yeah.
Tons of traction. Not the Assegai is to me a front tire. I'll never run that on the back.
Oh, okay.
That's a front tire.
Is that
for
a very
me.
common thing in mountain biking? Because gravel, I see
Yeah.
some gravel riders do it, but it's not. I wouldn't say the majority. Most people just
Yeah.
run the same tire front and back.
Some people will run the same tire. I mean, I've ran Maxxis DHF's front and rear on a bike before.
Yeah.
But I'm not that picky either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I know the characteristics of a DHR
Yep.
and a DHF.
Yep.
So it's okay for me to run it however I want.
Right.
I've had bikes where I had DHRs front and rear.
Yep.
Santa Cruz does that a lot with their high tower.
Oh, okay.
A lot.
Okay.
They'll spec a DHR front and rear.
Yeah.
Why?
So it's not super uncommon.
I don't know why they do it.
Right.
They just do.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple of Santa Cruz.
Whatever deal they have or something.
I've had a couple of Santa Cruz high towers, and both of them had DHRs. And I'm a run what you brung.
Yeah.
Like if it ain't broke, why fix it? I just wrote it and it worked. So I was like, all right, this is good.
I earlier I was stumbling over a question that I forgot and I remembered what it was.
Nice.
And it is another comparison between the road bike and the mountain bike side. And I will say that it feels like mountain biking is much more ahead of the curve in terms of trends. And at least in my perspective, more open-minded to new things, right? We talk about, if you talk about disc brakes, if you talk about tubeless,
Sure.
these are things that like mountain bikers have been doing for quite some time.
Long time.
And I know road riders that are still, no, I will never ride tubeless. And there was
That's
even
okay.
like, there was, it's okay.
Right.
You might be wrong, in my opinion, but it's okay. Of course it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
But disc brakes, like I remember when disc brakes first came on the scene in the road side of things, like they were running them in the
do
Pro
too.
Tour and the UCI banned them at
I
first.
remember. It was a big deal.
Because it was like, well, these are going to hurt people because it is an extra spinning mechanism on the
Sure.
outside of the bike, which
Right.
maybe on paper you'd think that. But mountain bikers have been running them,
Yeah.
bigger rotors,
Sure.
and probably crash a lot more per, at least maybe
Yeah.
per mile or per minute.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And
So, but people aren't losing limbs because of rotors.
No.
And we're past that, I think.
Yeah.
People understand that, there's a plus side and a downside.
My question was, because UCI, they always have a weight. A bike can only weigh this much.
Yeah.
And we're talking elite level road racing.
Right.
I feel like the disc brake was part of the weight. I'm not saying it was all. I feel like it was part of the weight limit that they wanted.
So they were adding the weight because bikes can only...
They can only be so light.
Correct.
So it's right, I'm going the wrong way. I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah. So that's what I don't like. That's the funny thing is I understand, I think rim brakes are great. Rim brakes work really well. You get issues sometimes with wet and a carbon brake track. You know what I mean?
I could never go back to a rim brake bike.
But do you think that do you see a discrepancy between the two types of riders of being people still need to be convinced to that 32s are okay to ride on a road bike, and I feel like there are a lot of, let's talk about the people that come to gravel, right?
Sure.
So there's the mountain bikers that come to gravel,
Yep.
and there's the roadies that come to gravel. When I first came to gravel, I was like, sure, I'll run a knobby tire, but a 35 will be good. I probably even started with a 32.
Sure.
I quickly went to a 35, then I went to a 38. Now I'm running 40s, right?
Okay.
Where you talk about a mountain biker, I rode gravel up in New Hampshire with some mountain bikers, and this dude was running a 1.75 or something. He's running a mountain bike tire on a gravel bike, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was a giant or, something like that. But it was a
wide tire.
Big, wide tire. That seems, what we know now is that comfort goes a long way, fatigue goes a long way, right? It's not just about having the least amount of resistance when it comes to what's sucking your power, right? Because that's what we're looking if you talk about it in a training sense, right? You want to be able to put down power onto your pedals and you want it to transfer in an efficient way. And having a tire that's a little bit more squishy is going to affect that transfer, but it's also going to affect the feel of your body.
Sure.
So running a lower pressure is going to be better on your joints. It's going to be more comfortable.
Sure.
Do you think that the mountain biker going to gravel is more open-minded to these different types? I think so. Yeah.
And if you're really, really mountain biking a lot and you get into gravel, you're going to want some, a familiar feel, even though you're riding a different bike.
Yeah.
So when you're riding mountain bike trails on a mountain bike, the first contact with all of the things, whether it be roots and rocks or whatever, it's not your suspension, it's your tires.
Right.
It's your wheels.
Right.
So you can use those like suspension on a gravel bike by running a certain tire with a certain casing, certain amount of air pressure.
Right.
Some people run inserts.
Yep.
Some don't.
Yep.
Carbon
and that
wheels,
all affects it. That
all
affects
it.
Yeah. Right.
So I think mountain bikers are going into gravel with that same mindset.
Right.
And taking the things that they like from their mountain bike setup.
Yeah.
And incorporating that into their gravel bike setup.
Sure.
I think road bike folks are probably doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But what they don't understand, especially if they're riding an older road bike.
Yes.
I think people that are getting more familiar with newer road bike tech, especially wheel sizes and rim width, are starting to say, okay, I'm running this wider rim with this wider tire. I have disc brakes.
Yeah.
I don't need to run 100 PSI.
Right.
You know what I mean? On my road bike anymore.
Yeah.
Hookless rims, tires.
Yeah.
That going into the gravel world, some people that are not really privy and they're riding an older road bike with 725s and they're running 120 PSI.
Right.
I just need to fill these all the way up. And then they get on the gravel and they're getting beat up.
Yeah.
No traction.
Right.
They're slipping and sliding all over.
It's almost like a plastic tire at that point.
Yes. Like a wheelchair tire.
Yeah, right. There's no give. There's no ply to it. Yeah,
and some people, it's tough for them to see that this is just as good as what you were running on your older bike. And they need to get out on it and experience it.
Yeah.
So,
change is hard.
Oh yeah.
right? Change can be
Definitely.
hard for all of us, and not just bikes, but like in life.
In life, for
right?
sure.
And so, it's easier to do what you know,
Right.
right? And earlier you said like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, which is a good thing to, right? But like there's also a point where like you can say that too much,
Right.
and then it's like, well, I've got the proof.
Yeah.
I've got the proof that
Yeah.
if you run like a 42
Yeah.
at 38 psi, it's more comfortable than a 35 at 70 psi.
For sure.
Yep. And so that's a thing that like I think is important again to like educate people about.
Right.
It's like, there's a lot of new technology. I think sometimes it does feel like it's moving too quickly.
Yeah,
you know?
some advancements in our world are, and just looking at how the mountain bike changed from 2015
Yeah.
to now,
Yeah.
hub spacing,
Yeah.
rim width. I'm not a huge fan of like proprietary things
Sure.
on bikes.
Sure.
I want to be able to run.
Yeah. What you want.
Right. If I get a new bike and I like the way it is, and if I say if it ain't broke, don't fix it until it's broke.
Oh, right. Right.
But
right.
when it's broken,
That's the thing with bikes.
right?
Things break.
But when it's broken,
Yeah.
I want to be able to put the thing on that I want to be able to put on it, not that you're pigeonholing me into putting on it.
Right.
So I'm not big on proprietary stuff.
Yeah, it's like a weird pseudo monopoly. You find the same thing happens in tech or like in
Yeah.
cameras and stuff, and
Right.
it's infuriating because it limits you as a consumer,
Right.
And there are good things about capitalism, and that should be one of them.
Right.
The choice to like do what you want with something,
sure.
And so that is a good thing. Like, people talk about certain brands having a lot of proprietary stuff over others, and that's a big part of like the decision
Right.
when you buy a bike, right? Because
Yeah.
if you're buying a mid-range to high-end bike, it's going to cost you a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And I mean, even a low-range bike is a good amount of money for some
Sure.
people. You know what I mean? And so like to be educated on that decision of buying it, but then like the longevity of it, right? You talk about the warranty on the crank set from that GT bike, right? Like warranties go a long way, or
Right.
like customer service goes a long way, right? And like, not to make this like a plug for the shop more directly than it already is, but like coming to a bike shop and talking to someone and like getting their advice on like, hey, this is a great thing, but like this is a proprietary bottom bracket, and like you have to run this, press fit. There's only one option, and like it costs $300.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
oh, well, how often do you replace those? Well, if you're riding your bike like this, and it might be often, and it's
It
like,
might be
oh,
often. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
well, let me consider these other options, right? And so that is like and then like I said, sometimes that advancement is like so much that it become overwhelming, right? So like just talking to people about it, whether it be your friends on a ride, where you're out on the trail, or like coming to the shop and talking
We do
about
that
it
a lot.
Yeah. Oh, me too. Like all the time. That's
And I ride with a group of guys, my friends, and everybody's for the most part riding something different.
yeah,
And that's cool.
yeah,
I ride what you want to ride.
yeah, for sure.
But I think aside from one-piece handlebars and stem combos on road bikes,
Yeah.
it's not as big as it is in the world of mountain biking.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like we're kind of getting out of it now, where
Yeah.
a lot of the brands are making their bikes with shock eye to eyes that allow the rider to run
To
whatever
run other
shock they
things.
want.
Yeah.
Everyone's going back to threaded bottom brackets
Yes.
for the most part now.
Yes.
So the home mechanics,
Even though
it's easier.
there's a
It's
sect,
just easier for everybody.
there's a sect of roadies that don't like threaded bottom brackets because they don't look good. This is
Okay.
something I've been noticing online lately.
Okay.
And it's like, well,
Aesthetically, but so for me, like, all right, that's fine. We all want to, like, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want my bike to look good.
oh yeah.
Like we want our
big
bikes
motivator.
to look good.
It's a big motivator to ride.
Like when I'm sitting there looking at my bike, I'm
Yep.
like, oh, it looks good. Let's go ride it.
Absolutely.
But I'm not looking at my bottom bracket.
See, that's the thing.
The cranks are covering it. Your chain ring and chain rings are covering it.
Exactly.
So unless you're just taking pictures of your bike for the gram, And
Yeah, but like you're like setting up.
yeah, like
shooting
how do you
down.
do it?
Yeah,
You're just taking the non-drive side all the time.
Exactly. That's why I think that is, of course, to each their own. If you want to run a press fit bottom bracket, that's fine. It's a little bit more of a pain in the ass.
Yep.
And there are tolerances in the bottom bracket that could cause issues in that regard.
Yep. Especially if your bottom bracket shell doesn't start its life round.
Yes.
Which a lot of brands are notorious for not being able to make a circle quite a circle.
Right. Circles are hard to make. They're hard to manufacture. And so, I do like that threaded is like, I feel like the past 10 years has been a whirlwind for bottom brackets.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're sort of at least bringing it down a little bit.
T47
is
is
like
huge.
huge. Yeah. Right.
I think it's I prefer it over a press fit.
Yeah. Me too.
But
me too.
I never liked press fit BBs, honestly.
No, I agree. They look clean.
I didn't understand why it couldn't just be threaded. Right. Like, is it a cost thing?
Right. It's also the whole tool aspect to it.
Right.
Like for home mechanics, it makes it more difficult. So, or makes it at least another tool that you have to buy.
Right.
So, okay, let's get to the final section of the show.
Yep.
We'll talk about pedal assist bikes another time because I do think that we could sit down for an hour and talk about it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, once again, I found a post online. This time this was from the mountain biking subreddit. So MTB subreddit. And I would like to know what you think about this post. Okay. So this is from user You Know Me. And it says tricks to avoid aggressive dogs. I'm curious if you've ever come across something like this before. I know I have. This person posts, last 2 times I've ridden mixed use trails, dogs have snapped to me. No bites yet, but both close calls. One was off leash and I yelled leash at the owner. In California, owners are 100% liable for any bills resulting from their dogs. So I'm surprised people aren't more careful if their dogs are aggressive in any way. Are there any tricks for more safely passing dogs? Take your full face helmet off, go by as slowly as possible. Warn the owner that I'm coming up on them if passing from behind. I should add that both of these incidents were on fire roads where roads were wide enough for traffic both ways. When I encounter dogs on single track, I pull over and let them and their owner pass me. Do you see dogs when you're riding your mountain bike?
All the time.
And have you had, let's say, a negative interaction with a dog? Because of leashing, because of how do you deal with that situation?
It's always a off leash dog.
Yeah.
Always. Because if I'm riding a section of single track, and then I see a person walking toward me, and their dog is on a leash, and I'm on a section of single track, I'm like, okay, this is just me. I'm just gonna stop.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they don't see me. Yeah. Because it's a beautiful day. Right. They're zoning out. Right. Their dog's sniffing around, trying to do
You're going a little bit quicker than them, probably.
I'm moving a lot quicker than them. I will stop, make sure they see me.
Yep.
And I always keep forgetting, but a couple of my friends have bells on their bikes.
Yeah.
And I always say, I got to get a bell, and I always forget to get one.
Yeah.
And I'll let them come up, and I see that their dog is on a leash. I greet them, say hi to them. I like animals, so if I think the dog is chill, hey, can I pet him or her? And they're like, oh yeah, I'll get down and I'll pet him, and we'll chat for 2 minutes, and then I'm off.
Right.
Those situations are rare.
Really?
Rare.
It's more often that the dog is off leash?
I would say 90% of my encounters with dogs in the woods, the dog is off the leash. And most of those encounters are still positive for me.
Okay, that's
because good. I have a system that I use. If I see your dog, I'm going to stop.
Yeah,
because that dog might have a thing where it just wants to chase something that's moving.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
True.
So I'm just gonna stop, and I'm gonna unclip. I'm gonna have a foot on the pedal. I'm going to just stand over my bike. Hey, what's up, buddy? Dog runs up. It's sniffing around.
Sometimes you might not even see the person at this point.
Nope.
Person's like
way far away.
Trail. Yeah. Right.
Dog comes up, sniffs around, turns around, runs back to its owner, turns around, runs back to us.
Yeah.
And then they catch up. Oh, hey. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Oh, he's friendly. So one day I had to tell a lady, I was like, look, he doesn't bite. I was like, yes, he does bite.
Yeah.
Yes, he does bite. You see those things in his mouth?
Yeah.
They're teeth. Yeah. And they're sharp.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all bite.
They all bite.
So don't tell me your dog doesn't bite.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I mean? Right. You don't know me. Your dog definitely doesn't know me.
Right. Any dog can be caught off guard and turn into,
for sure,
and use its mouth as its defense system.
If me and 5 guys are riding a trail fast, and we come around a corner, and there's 2 dogs there off leash,
right,
and they feel threatened, the dog is going to do what a dog is going to do.
Right. Even my little wiener dog will feel threatened in a situation.
For sure.
Yeah. Right.
And whenever people say, "Oh, he doesn't bite," yes, he does bite. Don't tell me your dog doesn't bite.
Right.
I'm not gonna hem and haw because you're out in the woods with your dog off the leash.
Now the dog should be on the leash, right?
In Lincoln Woods, your dog needs to be on a leash at all times.
Yeah.
It needs to be within your control and on a leash at all times.
Yeah.
So, don't tell me your dog doesn't bite. Your dog doesn't know me.
Right.
If you're walking and your dog's in front of you and it sees me on a bike, this thing that's moving, and he feels like I'm a threat to you.
It's like a guard dog mentality.
Yeah, your dog's going to do what you trained your dog to do, even though I'm not threatening you.
Right.
So whenever I see dogs, I just stop moving.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I do, because I think it puts them in a place where it's like, oh, I don't have to chase this person,
right,
or this thing.
Oh yeah, I've had dogs chase me on my gravel bike because I'm usually going a little bit quicker.
You're moving,
right?
You're moving,
and
you're doing 12, 15 miles an hour,
and I've stopped
right
dead because I've had a dog run at me.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, oh, this dog is gonna take me out or something.
Yeah.
So I full brakes, full hand of brakes.
Sure.
Stopped, a little bit of skid on the dirt. Dog chills.
Right.
Because it literally is, it's a dog. It just wanted to chase because I was going by quickly.
Right.
And as soon as I stopped, the dog just stopped. And it was a friendly enough dog, and it wasn't an issue.
Right.
But yeah, like you said, to me, I think it feels like, and even what this user said, when on single track, I pull over and I acknowledge. Yep. And maybe they're going to then decide to they'll step aside and let you go, or vice versa, whatever.
Sure.
But that's like a good acknowledgement. But that also, I think you want the dog to be on a leash no matter what. There is this, and I don't know if what this humanistic, dominant stance is for people that don't put their dogs on leashes. But it's like, well, my dog is so well trained.
Yeah,
or
they all say that until everyone says that until something happens. And, I had an incident where there was an older guy at Lincoln Woods and his dog, and I was on a section of trail that was really wide open.
Yeah.
You could literally go in it was like a wide open clearing.
Yeah.
You could go in a bunch of different directions. And he was walking, his dog was off the leash. I wasn't even riding. I stopped.
Yeah.
And the dog walked up to me and it kind of nipped at me.
Oh.
And I was like, with my wheel,
yeah, right. Put the bike in between you and the dog.
No,
yeah. Oh, you got it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. If you're gonna nip at me, I gotta do what I gotta do.
Right.
So I popped him with my wheel.
Yeah.
And the dog kind of stepped away, and the guy was like, "Hey," I was like, "Put your dog on a leash, or I'm going to the park."
Yeah.
We're both allowed to be here.
Right.
It's multiple use.
Right. We need to exist in harmony.
But your dog needs to be on a leash if it's ornery, and it doesn't. You got to put it on a leash, and you need to be in control of your dog.
Yeah, totally.
Because I don't want anything to happen to me. I don't want anything to happen to your dog either. But I'm going to protect myself.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I think the biggest thing with dog walkers, especially in places like, Lincoln Woods, is it's a small, in big rivers, some people walk their dogs off leash.
Yeah.
And there are even mountain bikers that ride with their dogs.
Oh, okay. I forgot about this. I've seen videos of this.
Oh yeah, there are trail dogs out there.
Right.
And you know your animal, but at the same time, it's you got to have consideration because some people don't like dogs.
Right. Some people are just scared.
Some
of
people
dogs.
just do not like dogs. It's not fair to that person.
Right. No,
that's
you're totally
allowed
right.
to be there.
Yeah.
Because you want to be there with your dog off the leash and let it go run free. I get it. If I had a dog, I would probably be I'd be a liar if I said I wouldn't be in the woods with my dog off the leash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would just try to do it at a time when the park wasn't busy.
Yeah.
And Lincoln Woods gets busy, especially in the summertime.
Yeah, that's
and
a
a lot
great
of
point.
kids. It's just
Great point about some people are intimidated by dogs.
Totally.
You're right. Dogs they come with a mouthful of teeth.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say his name. He's a very nice guy that I love to ride bikes with. I've seen him terrified of dogs before. We've ridden by yards where it's unclear if the dog is on an invisible fence or not.
Yeah,
and it starts barking and running and you don't know and you get scared, know? And so it is a consideration thing, right? And so obviously it's very situational, whether it's single track or like a wide road, right? Let's take the bike path, for instance, right? On the bike path, hopefully you're not doing intervals, and it is good
I've actually seen that on the bike path.
I've seen it too.
It's kind of
there
funny
are bike path
and scary.
warriors. Yes, it is scary. But in that case, it is nice to say on your left.
Sure.
And even if you're passing a cyclist on your left, right? Because communication is important.
Yep.
And so the same thing with if you're on a single track, you stop on the side, hey, hi, okay, we're passing by, right? It's just about being considerate of each other and communicating with each other, Because ultimately this is a society and we all want to enjoy these outdoor spaces,
sure.
Whether it's Lincoln Woods or the bike path or some fire road in Arcadia, right? But we do need to be respectful of each other. And so I just thought this was interesting. I've personally sprayed a dog in the face with my water bottle. That is something that someone told me worked for them, and I was in a situation where honestly 2 or 3 dogs were on my rear wheel, and I took one of my bottles out and sprayed, and it I don't even know if I hit the dog, but at least distracted the dog enough.
It was enough to get him off of
All
you.
3 of the dogs stopped.
Yeah.
But I have had to put down some serious power to sprint a dog running after me.
Oh yeah.
And there are even a couple of spots that I know that these dogs are off leash and in the yard, and I will ride differently on the road or just avoid the road altogether, because I've had dogs run out at me at I'm doing 30 miles an hour down a hill on my bike.
Yeah.
If that dog clips me, that's not going to be good for either of us.
Nope.
That is not going to go well.
Not at all.
And
it's totally the owner's fault. 100%.
Right. Whether or not you're in California, this person
100%.
says, that is that's a liability thing.
Yeah. And some dogs are, their natural instinct is to chase things.
Yeah.
It's to herd.
Yeah.
And when they see something moving, it's like an instinct. They're just gonna. And I try not to blame the animal. I try to blame the owner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's but most people I encounter are usually pretty cool.
Yeah, nice enough.
And if their dog is obedient and they give it the call, it knows when to go back, and then they'll grab the leash or the collar, because it's not on a leash. They'll grab the collar, and then we'll go by, and then they'll keep doing their thing.
Yeah.
So
no, that's great.
It is what it is.
Yeah. Well, I think that'll just about do it for the episode, Jason.
Cool.
Thank you so much. Of course, make sure to check out NBX.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming.
Yes, please do.
Check out NBX. Cross is here Wednesday nights at Old Mountain Field. Cross training series is going on for the next few weeks at least.
Yep.
It's Just a Hill's got a bake-off ride coming. NBX Miss is just around the corner.
Yep.
So yeah, come down to the shop, pick up some holiday gifts, or just come say hi to Jason or anyone else that was here.
Absolutely.
Come check out, whatever you have in store, any sort of questions that you have that weren't answered on the podcast, come down and check them out.
Yeah.
And that'll just about do it.
Couple shout outs.
Yeah, let's go.
RI Nemba.
Hell yeah. Nemba.
1PVD.
Hell yeah, 1PVD.
Cyclecraft Fitness.
Cyclecraft Fitness, CCF.
CCF.
Yep, love it.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Love that. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Let's get you back on and we'll talk pedal assist bikes.
Yeah, let's do it.
Not immediately.
No.
I gotta get more notes. I feel like I need even more notes coming on.
Yeah, this is a big one. There's infrastructure, there's traffic, there's a lot of liability. There's a lot of stuff.
Right. So yeah. So keep an eye out for that. And thanks again, dude. Thanks for doing it.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.
We are It's Just a Hill, a cycling club that promotes inclusion, judgment-free, with no gatekeepers. Focused on creating content from behind the handlebars to in the studio, It's Just a Hill is producing videos and podcasts to spread the message that cycling is for everyone. We are focused on reminding everyone that riding your bike can help you overcome any obstacle, because after all It's just a hill.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. It's very challenging work.